An eviction attorney in Pasadena, California says that landlords are having their money stolen from them by the city and that they should invest out of state and divest themselves of everything they own in the state of California. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's going over the opinions of this eviction attorney up in Pasadena, California. Now, he specifically was speaking about rent control stuff that's going on within the city, but overall, he is not pleased with the way things are going in the state of California. And it's pretty obvious that he thinks that it is a bad idea to invest there right now, that there are too many rules, there's too much government regulation, and in particular, the rent control measures, they are stealing from landlords. They are stealing away our ability to even operate our businesses because they don't allow us to be able to raise our rents to the levels we need in order to maintain our properties and make a decent profit, okay? And they also are causing a housing shortage. They're causing a housing shortage because developers don't want to build under these stupid regulations. Landlords don't want to rent out their properties under these stupid regulations. And tenants, they're the ones they end up fighting for a smaller number of properties, and they're willing to pay much higher prices. They have to pay much higher prices. It's the whole law of supply and demand. The less you have of a product and the higher the demand is, the more you're going to have to pay for that product, okay? And they think the solution is rent control. It's not. It's not. It only makes things worse. And they don't understand that. This guy, he has it figured out, though, and he's warning the landlords, especially in Pasadena, but really throughout the entire state, that, hey, this is not the place you want to be investing right now. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Have you considered investing out of state if you live in one of these places, okay? One of these places where they don't believe in property rights, one of these places where they have rent control measures and they're trying to constantly just take more and more and more from landlords. Have you considered it? And if not, I understand. Out-of-state investing is not for everyone. I do it. I've done it for years. I think that it is the best way to have the best opportunities possible, right? But it is difficult. It requires a different set of skills, okay, just in particular. And you can be taken advantage of because people know that you're not nearby. So they think that, oh, well, we can screw this guy over. He's, hundreds or thousands of miles away. So yeah, you have to be a lot more diligent. You have to, just cross your T's and dot your I's on, you just have to make sure that everything is running correctly. But, I just ask that you at least consider it. Look at other markets. And if you're from California, it could be as simple as, hey, I'm looking at Arizona. Hey, I'm looking at Nevada. Hey, I'm looking up at Utah. Just closer states where they have more property rights, where they have less regulations, and you can still find properties that are reasonably, reasonable cost, okay? So anyway, let me get into this article. It's quite interesting, the things that this guy is saying, because, it mimics the things that I hear other landlords saying all the time, things that I say all the time as well. So let's get into it. This article is coming from PasadenaNow.com, and it says, eviction attorney rails against Measure H, advises Pasadena landlords to divest yourself. Yeah, he's like, yeah, just sell your properties, man. It ain't worth dealing with this nonsense. This is never going to get any better. And I agree. It's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. So sell now while you still can. Anyway, let's get into the article. A controversial landlord's rights attorney called Pasadena's rent control measure H dastardly on Tuesday during a seminar presented by the Pasadena Foothills Association of Realtors. Dennis Block spoke in front of a packed audience at Brookside Golf Club. Block is a well-known eviction attorney and an authority in landlord-tenant law and rent control who is based in Burbank. During the seminar, Block said the Pasadena City Council is stealing your rent, and the Rental Housing Board's fair return policy for landlords is a kangaroo court. That's lip service. It's pure theft, he said. Well, I just like how blunt he is, okay? people say that I'm blunt, right? But getting up in front of a crowd of people and talking like that, it takes a lot of guts because people, they think we're evil. They think we're evil, and I'm telling you right now, we're not. The only thing is, I believe that we deserve to be able to make a profit off of our properties, and that we should have the property rights that are promised to us by the Constitution. I do not believe that government price controls work. I think that they are 100% failure, and that this guy, he's absolutely right. It's theft, okay? It's theft because you are subsidizing these people's rent. The cost of maintaining the housing, the cost of the housing itself, those things are not subsidized. Only the amount that you can charge for rent is going to be subsidized. So you realize that, hey, if the tenant is only charged X, but the actual cost is Y, well, if the tenant isn't paying enough to actually cover the cost, that means the landlord has to make up for the additional cost. That means that the landlord is subsidizing that tenant's rent, and therefore is being being forced to subsidize it, by the way, by the government. So the landlord's being stolen from. Okay? It's pretty simple. People, they don't understand these things. Like so many tenant rights advocates in particular, they seem to think that money just comes out of thin air. Like, oh, well, it costs $1,000 to pay all my monthly taxes on this property, but the money must come out of thin air, right? Right? Wrong. It does not work that way. Somebody has to pay that cost, and they expect the landlord or the government to do it for them. And I'm saying neither. I'm saying the tenants should pay their own costs. Along with his condemnation of the city's rent control measure, which he called one-sided and stacked in the tenants' favor, Block walked his audience through much of the measure's main points and reminded the landlords and property owners to play by the rules, including regulations regarding just cause evictions, relocation policies, and allowable rent increases, along with providing information on the city's tenant protection ordinance. A majority of Pasadena voters passed Measure H in November. The measure established a local rental housing board and rolled back rent back to the amounts tenants were paying on May 17th, 2021. Now, did you hear that? They rolled the rent back 2 years. So whatever tenants were paying 2 years ago, well, now you have to remove. So if let's say that you did a complete rehab on your house, right? You gutted the place, you brought in all new fixtures, everything, right? And you were only charging, let's say, $2,000 a month before, but now you're able to get $3,000 a month. Nope. According to the rent control measure, guess what happens? You have to roll that rent back. You have no way to cover the additional costs for all the upgrades and updates that you did. Now, this is being repeated over and over again in larger properties. Like when apartment building, when you have a tenant move out, most of the time what landlords do is they go in there, they fix the place up, and then they bring the rents up to market rate. Well, they're saying, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. And keep in mind, too, I want you to keep in mind that the state of California has statewide rent control as well. So the rent control within the city of Pasadena actually was more strict than what they were requiring by the state. So landlords, this is part of the reason I'm sure this guy is like, hey, this isn't even worth dealing with anywhere within the state. Okay. Now, what I can't figure out is why they think this guy is so controversial. Okay, like they mentioned at the very beginning of the article that, hey, this guy, his views are so controversial. No, not really. Have you talked to any landlords? Because I guarantee you that 90% of them hate rent control. They hate government regulation. They hate all of the things that they try to do to screw us over. 90% of them. There's 10% who, maybe they're so rich that they just don't care what happens. I mean, I don't think there's many landlords in that category, right? But the grand majority of landlords are, they have the exact same viewpoint. Maybe they don't use the same terminology, the same words, right? But they believe the same things, especially when it comes to rent control. A judge ruled against the California Apartment Association in a lawsuit to block the initiative. The best thing for you would be to buy property out of the state of California and divest yourself of everything that you own, because these laws are truly strangling anybody who owns property rights, Block said. When reached by Pasadena Now, Rental Housing Board President Ryan Bell said, first of all, it was an election. People voted. It's like direct democracy, so it doesn't get much more democratic than that, in response to Block's criticism of Measure H. Yeah, it was an election, right? But just because people vote for something, that doesn't mean that landlords are going to just sit there and just comply, okay? People, they really think, oh, yeah, well, if we pass a law that says that landlords cannot raise their rent or that they have to roll their rent back, then they're just going to sit there and just take it. No. What they're going to do is we're going out of business. We're selling our property to owner-occupants if it's like single family, or if it's an apartment building, we're going to convert it over to condos or to a co-op, and then they're going to just sell off the individual units, right? Some landlords are just going to be like, hey, I'm getting completely out of the business. I am done. The number of rental properties will therefore then decline, and then any property that is not covered by these rent control measures, right, which I believe in most rent control situations, they always exempt the brand new properties. Well, the rent in those properties is going to be sky high. It's going to be sky high because that is how they subsidize the rest of the rental properties that they own that are stuck under the rent control. Okay, so you know this is nightmarish. If you go to the point where developers don't want to build any new housing, landlords don't want to provide the housing anymore, and then they're like, oh, why is there no rental housing here available? You created the situation, okay? You created it. I don't care if it was passed democratically or not. It's dumb. It's dumb. It's unconstitutional, okay? If everybody got together and voted that they wanted to basically everyone get $1 million for free from the government, well, yeah, everybody's going to vote for that, right? But it would cause massive inflation. The government doesn't have the money to pay for it. It would make money worthless. It would destroy the economy. So we're not going to do something like that because it doesn't make any sense whether people want it or not. And that should be the way that they look at rent control as well.